Countdown. Hey, you didn't think it was going to be New Year's Day and not here. Yours truly doing just that. Wishing each and every one of you a very happy New Year. And my God, let's hope that the year of 2022 will be better than 2021 or 2020. Let's try to make this a positive New Year. I'm not going to hold my breath, but hey, I just throw that out as a suggestion. Anyway, I want to talk about how we could achieve America first, but not in the reactionary way of around the dawn of World War II, the American First Committee. They'll want to go with a reactionary version of America First. Sure as hell, in the year 2022, don't want to go with the reactionary version of America First by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz or Orange Man. No, no, we shouldn't do that. That's not what America First should mean. America First should mean protecting means and maybe a half a decade ago. A conservative, but I had a reputation at one time that to me socialism meant a something that's a little aggressive than what we think New Deal liberalism or liberalism is as a concept. I wanted some left of what the Democratic Party 1990 on to recent years. An argument that the Democratic Party is still on that trajectory of going with the failed Bill Clinton third way nonsense, or basically what I call the Reaganization of the Democratic Party. To me, socialism meant initially a single payer healthcare system, Medicare for all. It meant basically expanding union rights to have unions around a little more, a little bit stronger than it's been previously. That's kind of what I was thinking in terms of socialism or social democracy. And so people would be like, "Are you sure you're just not a liberal?" And I was like, "No, I assure you I am a socialist." Now I know that it depends on the country, depends on each society that's kind of experimented with socialism. Way to go. I mean, there is the British model that existed after World War II that heavily focused on nationalization of industries. And then there were places like Germany, Western Germany, and the Scandinavian countries that really didn't focus as much on nationalization, but they used socialistic measures to coincide with a free market system in a way that actually was a successful model too. And the thing about it is, now the Scandinavian countries did experiment with some forms of nationalization, and then they kind of backtrack off of it. And people will be like, "Well, that just proves that socialism doesn't work. Sweden tried doing this in the 1970s, and then they had to give up this whole notion of nationalization." But here's the thing: socialism has actually, I could still give socialism credit in Sweden, in places like Norway, in places like Denmark or Western Germany or Germany today, because while they don't focus on heavy nationalization, they did not go with the hardcore American system that we have here. A system basically where the whole idea of job security, we're just not going to have it here. It seems like the whole idea of whatever it takes to operate an American economy. Here in America, it seems like corporations goes first. It comes first, and workers are are just to be crapped on. And I mean, it's not a cliche. It is what it is. So the thing about it is that the thing about it is that while I don't support a command economy, let's say, and I don't. I know people who supports the Soviet model or the model in Cuba or what have you, or even the modern day model in China, and all of that is not where I am. I'm still not there. I don't quite see myself ever going there as far as the model to advocate. I think that the model that's actually successful is what exists in places like Great Britain after World War II. Great Britain, when the socialists came in after World War II, Clement Attlee's Labour government basically saved Great Britain from authoritarianism and basically brought the country back up to a functional society by the 1950s. So, um, Prime Minister Harold Macmillan once said, "You never had it so good." He was the conservative prime minister, and he was congratulating the reforms of Prime Minister Clement Atlee, who is one of my favorite prime ministers in British history. Um, and the thing about it is that, hold tight here. I will go and well, what I'm going to do is this. I will explain about Clement Atlee briefly here. Let's see. All right. Let's do this here. Give me a moment. Clement Atlee, one of the greatest prime ministers in British history. What is so sad about this man is that a lot of Americans who are politically knowledgeable about British politics knows that Margaret Thatcher was the one that whooped those socialists and the trade unions and got rid of all that socialism. Well, here's the thing. Uh, Great Britain still has a national health service, which is the most socialistic healthcare system in the Western world today as we know it. Um, that was an achievement by the Clement Attlee government. Nye Bevan himself, the Minister of Health during the Clement Attlee government, said in 19, I believe it was in 1947 or 1948, that the National Health Service, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he once said, our new National Health Service is Christianity, meaning that it's good for the people. It is good for the people. Funny that the religious right here in the United States thinks that universal health care is the work of the devil. But, a fiery old Calvinist socialist like Nye Bevan said that the National Health Service is Christianity. But not to get it too much into theology, what have you. But the thing about it is that is Clement Attlee, what he for the people of Great Britain. His Labour government from 1945 until 1951 did an aggressive amount of nationalization of whole industries. The coal industries, the electric, water, long distance trucking, airlines, you name it, the National Health Service, the welfare state, public guarantee jobs for people to rebuild Great Britain. And Great Britain was rebuilt through the labor government of Clement Atlee. And that is the model that I would here in the United States. It is the model that I absolutely favor. And so Clement Atlee, basically his I would say that his reforms basically I would say is essentially hold tight here. I'm so sorry. Let me do this really quick. I would say that his reforms basically save Britain from itself. So what I would like to say is that he's probably not as far left as Clement Atlee, but the closest individual advocating that within our mainstream culture today is this man, Bernie Sanders. And that Bernie Sanders, although not even as radical as he was in the 1970s or the 1980s, or even during the 1990s in Congress, but Bernie Sanders is the one trying to fight for some common sense in this country today. He is the leading voice. Now, he's kind of a disappointment in the last few years. He's bent the knee too much to the Democrats more than I like for him to do so. And so independent Bernie Sanders, in my view, doesn't seem to be as independent as he used to be. And that is a damn shame. So basically, let me do this here. I think we need to revisit. I think we need to revisit the whole idea of nationalization of industry. And give me a moment here. Graphics are important. Let's see. After World War or before World War II was ending, before his death, our greatest president, Franklin Roosevelt, was talking about a second Bill of Rights. And the thing about it, the second Bill of Rights is that it would have guaranteed every American a job, and that's a basic tenet of my belief as a socialist that every American should have a job, that every American should be entitled to a wage and decent living, to a decent home, to medical care, and to economic protections during sickness, accident, old age, or unemployment, and to have a good education. These things must be continued to fight. We must continue to fight for these things. And the thing about it is that I am very, very convinced that through the last 40 years of neoliberalism, what we need to do is we need to put the fear of God into these damn corporations in the United States, and not just the United States, other countries dealing with us here. And the thing about it is this. I mean, we allow corporately managed trade. I am not opposed to fair trade, but so-called free trade as disastrous for American workers. And and it's like whatever the corporations wants, they get it first. And American workers are like the last people to even be considered, to have any consideration. Well, thing about it is this. If I was the president, and if the executive order pen can be used to travel this far, whether it's automation of industry, which is also a creeping problem now these days, or moving factories out of the United States to go into the third world for cheaper labor. I would like to think that if I was president, to tell corporate America, you go and you outsource our American jobs for cheaper dollars across the ocean, you're not going to get away with it. Because what I would do is sign an executive order to cease to have the government seize the assets of such businesses and put it under public control to protect those American workers. You see, the thing about it is that Donald Trump bribed Courier with some corporate welfare um, to keep the jobs here. They eventually closed the jobs, and those people lost their jobs. The tax cuts for the corporations and the tax cuts that were given to these corporations, like GM, for example, laying off 14,000 people in several states, and it was done with the purpose of protecting American jobs. When COVID happened, all these Stephen Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, basically told these corporations, "Come on over. We got $4.5 trillion to give to you," and that included corporations not from the United States. And the conditions was they would not lay off American workers. Guess what? A lot of American workers got laid off anyway. So you see what I'm getting at? And then people are going to be like, talking about nationalization of these industries for abusing American workers. You'll hear people be like, "Oh no, he's talking about nationalization." No. We need to revisit this idea of nationalization of industries. Whole industries need to be nationalized if they're going to go and fuck over the American people. I have no problem with using what's it called, the Defense Production Act of 1950 to actually nationalize the healthcare system, nationalize pharma for the good of the American people. It's what I call America first, but America first in a very progressive way for the American people, not corporate America, not Wall Street, but for the American people. And anybody who thinks that I'm a terrible person for saying this, how in the hell can you justify corporations leaving the United States? Now, I know that it's now, it used to be back in the day when I was young, the whole talk about global trade, the whole talk about, the free market at work. And there was this worshiping of deregulation, these worshiping of the concept of privatization, and allowing companies to go and do whatever the hell and move their factories and move their operations from here to another country. And it was considered edgy. It was considered, badass and cool and all that. But a lot of middle class people disappeared, and they became impoverished as a result. And I think the people from across the political spectrum are tired of this shit. This isn't left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. This is, and although I am going to sound a little partisan in a second, in spite of what I just said, the thing about it is, it doesn't have to be that way. And the thing about it is, you got to go and support populism. Now, the Democrats, or an increasing number of Democrats, are using the populist rhetoric talking points, and maybe some of them are trying, but then Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer basically humble down real quick. That's problematic. Now, when I hear people talk about Josh Hawley of Missouri claiming he's for the workers, when he was for the $1,400 last year before Trump's term expired, the $2,000 checks, but then he turned against it once Joe Biden became president. It made me convinced that there is no such a thing as a populist right in this country. And what I'm saying is, to be populist right in America, and not that I want to be right wing, but to be populist right, you got to support unions at a minimum. And if single payer healthcare, Medicare for all, like they have in Canada, or the National Health Service in Britain, which is definitely socialized medicine, because let me clear this misnomer about the Canadian system. The Canadian system is not socialized medicine, it's socialized insurance. And our most robust mainstream progressives, when they're having a badass talking point moment, they will talk about Medicare for all, which Medicare for all only means socialized insurance. The British system is socialized medicine. There's been some creeping privatizations over the years, but it's still one of the most socialized medical systems in the Western world, in the Western capitalist world. You find a more socialized medical system than you find in the UK. To find a more socialized medical system, you have to go to Cuba or someplace like that. But the thing about it is, if that's too edgy for some of these conservatives, but they want to do something about healthcare, at least, my gosh, at least support a public option, and I could take them seriously. But they're not going to do that because any conservative that wants to be populist, they also are in a position where they're in a political party that is hyper libertarian in its ugliest way when it comes to economics. The worshiping of the profit motive, the worshiping of deregulation, privatization, all these things. I mean, all these things that are actually the cause of the problems that we have today. Getting rid of Glass-Steagall back in the 1990s. Thank you, Newt Gingrich, and thank you, Bill Clinton, for fucking the American people over by getting rid of Glass-Steagall. And Bush went and put the deregulation on hyper overdrive. The 2007 collapse of the economy, near collapse. And what do? We gave corporations, trillions of dollars, and that's all we know how to do. But we can't have health care for all. I mean, $300 million a day to go and occupy Afghanistan. At least part of that $300 million paid for a healthcare system for the entire population, but we can't afford it here. We can't afford it here. I think it's time to revisit nationalization of industries, and the sooner that we do this, at least you could put the fear of God into these people. Thing about it is, I will argue that the only way this is going to be done is through an Americanized Labor Party. That's what we need. We need an American Labor Party in the states. I mean, because the Democrats and the Republicans are failing us, and they continue to fail us. Now, I keep in touch with politics, and yeah, I have to go peer at what the Democrats are saying as on the show, because theoretically, there are some of them that are supposed to be on our side, but unfortunately, they bend the knee toward the Democratic leadership, and because none of them wants to be written off as the next Ralph Nader. When not that Ralph Nader, but there's more honor in being Ralph Nader these days than being, AOC or even Bernie Sanders, because Ralph Nader never bent the knee. But what's sad is that because of Trump derangement syndrome, the American liberal class decided to go and embrace George W. Bush as one of our own, and he's been rehabilitated. Yet they still continue to hate Ralph Nader to this day. You think about that for a moment. Think about it. Anyway, I would like to greet everybody with a very special Happy New Year on my chat line. Hot retarded chicks, good morning to you. How are you today? And Happy New Year to you. Let's see here. We have Steve Richard, Corbyn's right of first refusal to workers boycott the 2016 Labor Party. I'll tell you one thing about Jeremy Corbyn. The poor man has been smeared really, really bad. I mean, he was he's what Great Britain needed. And the only good thing that happened from his defeat, and I wanted him to be prime minister, is that his very presence of restoring labor back to his old socialist roots did scare the Tories into bribing the British public that they'll put it into austerity measures if they vote for the Tories. So right now, the British Conservative Party, and I would never vote for the British Conservative Party, they're governing to the left of the American Democrats. Y'all think about that for a moment. Radical leftist agenda. Happy New Year to you. Great hearing from you again. Let's see here. Linda, Happy New Year, y'all. Really, this is a great idea. Nah, the idea really is not all that too radical. I agree. I agree. Put making U.S. meds back in Puerto Rico. Linda, I'm going to tell you something about myself. I may not look it, but I'm half Puerto Rican. My mother's Puerto Rican, and I am quite familiar with Puerto Rico because I um, pretty much most of my life during the summer when I was growing up. And I'll tell you one thing sad about Puerto Rico. The Puerto Rico would the government will have these tax breaks for companies to come in and to open up their factories in Puerto Rico, provide jobs for a few years, and then suddenly they move their operations out. So unemployment is a terrible problem in Puerto Rico these days. So, like I said, I am ultra conservative independent voter, and I come here because we have to work together, and your ideas make sense. Thank you, Linda. And I have no problems with anybody who's an independent, whether they're in the two party system or not. If they can think outside the box, and their first concern is what's best for all people, then that's a wonderful thing right there. Um, and we need more people who thinks like that. So while we may not agree, we can have some common roots. Oh, I agree, Linda. Let me tell you, I used to be so damn hard line. And I criticize Republicans or conservatives here on this channel. I'm criticizing mostly elected politicians for the most part. But I'm gonna tell you, when I was in my protest time period during the Bush years, I ran across at a lot of these anti-war protests, a lot of libertarians, a lot of paleo-conservatives who were fed up with George W. Bush. And talking to them, it was quite an eye-opening experience. And it's just like, wow, they're not all a bunch of Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity sycophants, and so I started to become a little more open minded. Yeah, I don't agree with conservatism as far as a lot of the policies, but the fact that there are people for conservative reasons who are concerned with the environment or concerns with opposing, opposing the military industrial complex, opposing war, I welcome that. I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing in Congress when I used to see Dennis Kucinich of Ohio and Ron Paul working together to try to put a stop to the Patriot Act. Or now these days in the Senate, when I see Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul working together to try to put a stop to armed sales to Saudi Arabia, whereas in a situation where the United States is overseeing a genocide being committed by Saudi Arabia, and the United States is indirectly getting involved with that. I don't necessarily think the United States like what's going on, but you got terrible politicians who are greedy for that money. So what it comes down to. And there is a Russian name, and I cannot pronounce it. I'm so sorry, but how are you doing? It looks like Russian to me. If it isn't, I apologize. Let's see. And radical leftist agenda say, yeah, most people can agree. People in our government are playing theater and never do anything to help the people, and just the endless wars. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct as usual. Folks think. Let's see. Folks think we're so far apart. Not really. I actually like Bernie Sanders and some of his ideas. And that's the thing right there. I mean, as I said, I do think there are independent people from across the spectrum that will have some um, valid ideas, and I believe in working in coalitions, and things like that, and not vilifying everybody that thinks different from me. Although I'm very opinionated, and sometimes people will hear me criticize what's going on the other side, and that's going to continue. But right now, I'm just uh, I'm just trying to make sense of everything. So anyway, if you all like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, we'll comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Feel free also to share, to hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And until next time, I am Willie Bragg from the Willie Bragg Show. I hope to see this channel grow, and to chat with each and every one of you as this year progresses. And as I said in the very beginning, I hope that this year will be a massive improvement from the last 2 years. I am not going to hold my breath, but suffice to say, it is what I hope for. I can wish, can I? Y'all have a great day.